Coming to you live from a dimension where, holy shit, we interviewed Ryan Ridley. Shit. And this is Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Travis.
Hello, everybody. This is Brandon.
Welcome to yet another episode of Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast. So happy you could be with us this week.
So happy.
A week with no new Rick and Morty episode. It's like the old times, Brandon.
It is like, it's like, you know, what's old is new again. Just like Twin Peaks: The Return. Oh my God, that's a hell of a show.
Save that for your Twin Peaks podcast that you'll start as soon as you leave me for some other podcast host that actually watches Twin Peaks. I'll get to it. I've got a lot in my queue. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special episode for you this week. None other than Ryan Ridley, writer of the show Rick and Morty. Woo. He will be joining us very soon. But before we get into that, of course, we have a little bit of housekeeping to attend to. So if you want to contact us, contact the show, there are many ways you can do that. You can hit us up on Twitter at Rick and Morty Pod, over on our subreddit, rickandmortypodcast.reddit.com. Hit us up on our website, apatheticenthusiasm.com/Rick and Morty Podcast. Email rickandmortypodcast@gmail.com. Is somebody like writing this down feverishly, you think, Brandon? Like they're in their car in traffic and they're like, I keep missing the email. I just got to write it down.
Oh, God. Hey, stop writing, asshole.
Obviously, all of those links are in the show notes, where you can also get a link to our TeePublic page where you can grab yourself a t-shirt, including the Unity t-shirt. If you've fully assimilated into Unity, you can pick up an Interdimensional RSS Unity t-shirt on our TeePublic site. And then if you want to support the podcast, maybe you've already left a review, maybe just you feel in your heart of hearts there's something more you could do, then head over to our Patreon site, patreon.com/Rick and Morty Pod, and sign up for maybe video versions of some episodes, or I don't know, maybe someone will sign up for a hangout and it'll just be the three of us. Yeah. Me and Brandon and whoever signs up for the hangout.
That'd be fantastic.
All right, well, enough of that. Now it's time for Brandon to put his singing voice on and get into some semi-pertinent news.
Ryan Ridley! Fight! Semi-pertinent news! Hey,
good old mortal Ryan Ridley combat. That's what's up first in the old semi-perts there, Brandon?
As we all know, Game of Thrones, the season 7 finale was last week. Season 6, season 7, well, whatever. And it was done. That we're not going to do spoilers here. That's not this podcast. But at the very tail end of Rick and Morty that same night, they Adult Swim put a little, they have the black screen with the tag on there, and it said Game of Thrones writing whenever the show started in like 2006
to... It was like 2006 to 2017 or something like that.
Yeah. Whenever the show started.
Basically saying the writing was dead on the show.
Yeah.
Which I initially laughed at. I was a little bit of like, ooh, like, That's a bit of a burn.
Throw a nightshade,
especially when I had literally just finished watching the season finale as soon as I flipped over to Adult Swim. But some fans were not happy with the card. A lot of people reached out to the creators of the show. None other than Dan Harmon received several nasty tweets saying that was a cold-blooded response. And Dan himself responded to the criticism on his Instagram page.
That's right. Basically saying, hey, it was kind of tacky, and it wasn't us. We didn't make that joke. We Rick and Morty, we did not make that joke. So please don't hate us for it. I know that
I was just gonna say.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. No, after you. After you.
Well, you paused, and so that I thought it was, and then you.
Well, no, go ahead. Brandon. After you.
No, after you. After 3 hours later, it's just you and me yelling after you over and over.
And Ryan Ridley sends us a message on Twitter, says, I waited for you guys. I don't know what happened.
We were busy being polite.
A lot of I read and I'd heard that some of the Game of Thrones podcasts caught wind of this, and that they were throwing shade back at Rick and Morty and saying how crappy Rick and Morty was. And that's just a shame, being me being a fan of both, you as well. And, let's come together. It's a harmless joke.
Let's all get along. And realistically, I think some people maybe have issues divorcing Rick and Morty from Adult Swim.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously Rick and Morty is featured on Adult Swim, but there are different people making those things happen, and different people running the network versus producing the show, and
They're a different breed.
so it's not all intertwined. You gotta get your tweet at Adult Swim PR or something like not at Justin and Dan. So that came up, and then one other bit of news. I don't know. This is where I feel like it's the best time for us to talk about errors and stuff.
Yeah.
Travis probably messed up. So we got a lot of feedback this week about something that we talked about on the podcast during the rest and relaxation episode. I mentioned that I noticed when Toxic Rick and non-toxic Rick were fighting, and they burst through the living room just as Summer sees Mrs. Pancake saying, "You do know me." I thought that both versions of Rick responded to Summer in kind. I thought that they both said, "Sorry, Summer," but multiple sources pointed out to us, including Shut Up Casey on Twitter, and I think there was somebody on Facebook. Or we'll pop you in the show notes as soon as I find you. But both of them made it clear that I was wrong and that Toxic Rick was bleeped out because he said "F you" to Summer. And
you didn't want to say the fuck. You didn't want to say the fuck out loud.
That's usually your role, Brandon. But yeah, and so it's. I'm more of a non-toxic Rick. You're like the toxic Rick in the relationship.
I'll accept that. It just means that I care about people more than you do. And when you said it originally, I said this in the initial conversation on Twitter. I was like, I'm pretty sure he said "fuck you, Summer," but Travis, he sounds very confident about his description. And so this drives a point home between Travis and I, where Travis says, "Look, if I mess up, you just correct me on the spot. Don't worry about it.
Call me on it. And you know what? That's the type of symbiotic relationship we have, Brandon. All right. Anywho, moving on. That's enough semi-pertinent news.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've made it through 7.5 minutes nearly to get to this point where we get into the main thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Ridley has responded to a tweet. It was a shot in the dark. I said, "Hey, would you like to join us on a weekend where Rick and Morty isn't on?" And he said, and I quote, "Sure." So after several DMs and a couple of rescheduling throughout a very long weekend, we finally made it happen. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Ridley, it's time for the main thing.
Do you want me to do a song for the main thing? I don't know.
I always want a song, Brandon. Give the people what they want.
Was there another Mortal Kombat song for? I think that was the only. Mortal Kombat. Ryan Ridley interview the main thing.
All right, everybody. This is Travis, and we are here with Rick and Morty. Oh, I already did it. I did it. I mean, we're here with the writer of a popular TV show, Ryan Ridley.
Thank you for having me. I'm a writer on a popular TV show, not necessarily associated with the subject of this podcast, just a well-known TV show. No publicity people can be mad at me because I'm simply talking about my work on a popular television show on basic cable.
Yeah, and it's still unknown. What exactly your contributions are. Definitely not on IMDb anywhere this season, but you're there, and we appreciate having you, Mr. Ridley. Should I call you Mr. as a sign of respect and deference?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because when else am I going to get that respect and deference?
We considered Ryan Riddles Ridley, but we didn't know if that was too informal or if it would conjure up some sort of questions that we'd be unable to answer.
You can call me the Riddler.
The Riddler. We just want to make it clear that we're not judging you. We just want to make that clear up front.
Yeah,
you're referring to the video of the RC car thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I heard that turned out great. I haven't seen it yet, but I just want to give a shout out to my boy John Carmen, who makes those, who I just hung out with, and he does a great job. He does all that stuff and all the BTS stuff as well.
Awesome.
They have been awesome. Yeah, we are happy to see each one of those as they come out.
So. I watched that video 2 to 3 to 5 times actually, and I don't usually watch them that often, but there's something about you as Ryan riddles Ridley in that scene with like your
Anthony Chan.
Yeah, with Anthony Chan, like your facial reaction of "Do you have a smoke?" Like that whole, it's got me tickle me pink. And also kind of coincidentally, the smoke is just all over Burbank. So hopefully you stayed safe from that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was at work, a different television show on Thursday or Friday, I can't remember. I think it was Friday, and I pulled an all-nighter, not to brag, working on a script, and I was sleeping in my office, and I heard people talking about the fire, and I was so tired. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep listening until I hear like the keywords of, oh my God, we're all going to die unless we leave now. And until I hear that, I'm not going to move. And so I never actually saw it until I looked online, because I went up to Idlewild, which is like 2 hours away from LA this weekend for Labor Day. And I never even saw it. I just saw it on Instagram.
I was going to say, as Southern Californian natives, we kind of just get used to wildfires in general. It's just like, oh yeah, all right, well, let's see what else is going on this week.
But that was pretty close. They're always like in places where you're like, where is that? It's never going to affect me.
Yeah, I'm fine.
It's in Malibu. Who cares about Malibu anymore?
What, Suzanne Summers' house is going to burn down? Oh, boo-hoo.
Protect it with some Thigh Masters, Suzanne.
Yeah. But it is crazy, because I'm like, man, one weekend we have the biggest flooding in Texas, and then the next weekend supposedly the biggest wildfires in California, Southern California at least, and climate change, man. Let's just keep ignoring it. Okay, that's the end of my political rant.
All right, the
I just want to get the message out there on the podcast. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, we did come up with a few questions that we wanted to ask you. There's only 2 or 3 dozen pages, so we should probably start getting into a few of those. And first up, we wanted to know, were there any cartoons or shows that you watched a lot growing up, or movies maybe, that really inspired your writing on that popular TV show that you work on? Well,
at work the other day on a yet to be aired and hopefully popular television show, one of the writers is asking everybody what their 5 favorite TV shows were, and it was hard for me I have a hard time like on the fly, but then as like the day went on, I was like, oh yeah, it was that one. I mean, Mr. Show is probably the biggest influence as far as just purely like, oh, this is the kind of comedy that I want to do. This is like as weird as I feel like the directions I would love to explore as far as the weirdness goes. I think growing up, the baseline was always, funny SNL like teaches you like the basics of what comedy is. And then at some point you're like, oh, but this shit's really showing me like the frontiers I want to explore, and that we're allowed to be this weird. And in the back of your mind, that's sort of what you're always like, God, I feel like I want to do something even weirder and crazier, but I don't know what. And then you see some example of it, you're like, oh, there it is. And that was Mr. Show for me, which was like, for me, being like a college dropout and really being lost in my late teens, early 20s. That's when that show came out, and so it was just me and my friends watching it. I think that shaped my brain and influenced me and inspired me more than any other show as far as actually that part of my point in my life when I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then, of course, that's what bonded me to guys like Justin, because it turns out he was doing the same thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I had I was late to the Mr. Show train, but when I was a kid, like I watched a lot of MTV's Estate and all that type of that really kind of alternative humor really spoke to me. And now Tim Heidecker and Mr. Show, or not Mr. Show, obviously awesome show, great job. I fucked that up, but anyways, whatever. That show's
what like kind of podcast? You can't even get the name of our sister show.
Tim and Eric, awesome show.
Tim
Great
and
job.
Eric, awesome show. Great job. And I'm not suggesting that it's our sister show because I've identified the show that I have worked on. I'm just saying, spiritually speaking.
Yeah, all shows are related on some wavelength over time, I think. Yeah.
So I want to go this little bit slightly different direction. So I know that you have a history of stand-up comedy in your blood, so to speak. It's flowing through your blood. How has your history of stand-up really kind of influenced your writing? Right? Is it a large part of who you are, or do you draw inspiration from that? Or
well, I only did stand-up because back then there was really no other way for me to get what I wanted to do writing wise out there, because it was just before you could just make a sketch and put it on YouTube. So it was like, well, I can write weird, funny jokes and then get on a stage and perform them and get a reaction from them, from the audience, and sort of start to understand if my sensibility is as Dan would say, marketable. Just like if what I think is funny to me is actually funny to anybody else. And that includes your peers, which are ultimately probably the most valuable judges, as far as just when you start to go like, oh, wait, the people I think are funny and doing interesting stuff think I'm funny and doing interesting stuff. Okay. Then you start to build your confidence, and then obviously just an audience, you want that because you want to feel like you're viable, just on a larger scale. So that was how I figured stuff out. And then just doing stand-up in those early days, the people I did stand-up with who are all have gone on to a lot of great things themselves. It was like, that's who you're inspired by, and that's who starts influencing you. And then you're like, oh my God, I got to be as good as them, or at least I got to push myself because I just watched what they did. And that was how I formed my early, just what it would become my voice comedically, I guess.
Do you think that, like Steve Martin's book Pure Drivel, he talks about working with Gilda Radner before either of them became famous, right? And I feel like that in comedy circles and musical circles, like you find this group of people that humble beginnings and then kind of work with each other to kind of build each other up over time. Have you found that's a true for you anyway?
Oh yeah, that's like the biggest thing. I mean, when I started doing stand-up in Detroit, and where I grew up, and my dad has a comedy club, and that's how I first became aware of just the power of stand-up comedy and how that influenced me as a kid, watching really great stand-ups come through his club, because he has a really big popular comedy club in Detroit. And so then I was like, well, I want to do this too. But in Detroit, God bless them, it's just like the people there that are doing stand-up, like they're just not like it's just good. The people who are really, really trying to push and develop and find their voices and try to quote unquote make it are going to start moving to Chicago or New York or LA pretty early on. And so I wasn't really that inspired in Detroit. I should say I was just like, I was looking for something more. I wasn't sure what. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're looking for like a group of friends to connect with, and you're in class and like all of a sudden some kid starts talking about Coen Brothers movies, and you're like, whoa, what? I never heard of this crazy shit. I've only been watching like Disney. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
first level, you kind of when you level up with your taste and your worldview. Yeah. So I went to Chicago because I knew that was the next. It's a great middle station between LA and where I grew up, suburbs of Detroit. And the first night I went and saw a show was the Midnight Bible School, which is a little theater inside of the Second City complex, and just the comedians blew my mind. They were just doing such great, interesting, innovative stuff. So I was like, all right, this is where I'm going. And I moved there, and I was just like, instantly just try to get into as many open mics and shows as possible. And I always name drop who I started off with, but a lot of these guys actually came a little bit after me, but we were all kind of starting to do it at the same time, like TJ Miller and Kumail Nanjiani and Pete Holmes and Kyle Kinane and Matt Bronger, and trying to think who else that sort of kind of made it on that national level. But that was kind of the crew. And even the people who, to be honest, didn't go on to make it, like the people who gave up and became teachers or what. I mean, some equally as amazing, talented people that you don't know, because there's just that thing it's the rare combination that was immediately identifiable in a guy like TJ, which is like, oh, very, very talented and funny, but also very driven and has, the business savvy to know what they have to do to get famous and successful, Yeah. And some people are so brilliant creatively and they just can't figure out how to make it work, on a business level. And it's always a shame, because then there's the people who are not funny and talented at all, but they really know how to make it work on a business level. And it's that rare Venn diagram. We're like, oh, cool. It's nice to see someone that's talented and funny and also has their shit together. Make it.
Do you think a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people, but do you think people in that not knowing the business savvy but are really talented, do you think some of them maybe aren't as driven, but they struggle through it till they hit an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'd put myself in that category. I don't know. I'm not really that. I mean, I'm certainly not. I remember TJ he had gotten the role in Cloverfield before he even left Chicago. Huh. And, so he had already made a mark, and people noticed him when he was still in Chicago. And I always felt like, I'm like, man, I do like the stand-up comedy festivals in Chicago, and I'd never quite get, like, I was never quite getting like into the new faces, you know what I mean? Like, I never felt like the industry gave a shit about me, and so I just kind of kept like really just aiming my I'm trying to think of a metaphor. Creative laser beam. my divining rod in the direction of who I thought were doing stuff that I liked, which is why I got involved in Channel 101 and met Dan and Justin, because I learned about Heat Vision and Jack, and then I found out that those guys had created this thing called Channel 101, and then I watched those videos. I'm like, yep, that's the kind of shit I want to do, just like that eureka moment with Mr. Show. I'm like, well, this is now a Mr. Show vibe that I can actually become a part of. And so that was been my only key to the quote unquote success I've had as a writer or anything else, is I just followed the joy of who I wanted to work with creatively. I never knew how to do it. And then because of that, literally it was like, hey, this guy's really good. You guys should sign him as a client, big time agency. And they're like, all right, I guess if you say so. Like those industry people they never said, "Whoa, we got to sign Ryan Ridley and make him successful and famous." I just was lucky that people that were doing good stuff seemed to like what I was doing and wanted to give me jobs.
So would you say, like, when you're writing, like, do you prefer like writing with a group and like collaborating on like those ideas, or is that something that sort of has come into your writing that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I mean, obviously just doing the stand-up at the time I did it, I was very influenced by a lot of those people I rattled off. And then doing Channel 101 and doing stuff with Justin and Dan and Rob Schraub and, all the people that came from that world. And even the people I frankly never really were friends with, like the Lonely Island guys. I mean, they were sort of about to go big when I first came into 101, and we overlapped in the tiniest bit. But, those people's sensibilities are all what influenced me. I mean, Dan's probably more than anybody else, just because I was such a fan of him and respected him so much creatively that, I always wanted to try to write like how he wrote, which I think it's always important to sort of aim in one direction and then at some point go like, well, but I don't want to be, try to be like a copy of somebody, because you're just going to end up being the poor man's blank.
Right.
And so you start to figure out what you're good at, and then you're drawing on all these other things like, well, I like what this person does, but I also they the interesting thing about working on the popular show that I have done work on is that the two creators, whose names I will not name, have in many ways very different sensibilities and styles, but they overlap in a very special way. But sometimes they don't, and sometimes I've had to go like, no, this, I know that you don't get what the other one's trying to do with this moment, but you think it's detracting. But trust me, like, this is what's going to make the show special, because we're doing this weird stuff that you don't think is necessarily the way you should do it. I mean, I think that's what makes it such an interesting show, is that sometimes it's like, wait, this doesn't make sense structurally. Why are we doing this? Exactly. That's why.
So they say that conflict breeds creativity, right? So
who says that?
Somebody. I read it.
Brandon says that. He just said it.
I read it in film school for Battleship Potemkin. But so would you say that like there's a part of when there's conflict, having an intermediary presence to kind of like say, hey, let me try to explain this concept or a little bit to you, and then vice versa if the other person has an issue?
I think that conflict is going to lead to one or two things. It's going to lead to the best idea winning, or it's going to lead to the most mediocre compromise winning.
Oasis.
How dare you?
No. Well, was that a good thing or a bad thing? We don't know. I didn't give it context.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. It was me who assumed you were putting it on the negative side of the spectrum. I'm going to choose to think you think that Oasis is better than the Beatles, like Liam Gallagher said.
Is that true? I don't know. Find out at the end of the episode.
I'll reveal the answer. Stay tuned. So you know what I mean? It's we've had some big fight. I mean, I've had fights in writers' rooms, but I always find that as long as the I keep saying this lately, as long as it's not about ego, if it's truly people collaborating and they're trying to create the best product, and there's a vision for it that goes beyond just what any of the individual people think is they want to be right, then you're going to end up with something really great and special. And so, and most of the time in writers' rooms, there are conflicts, because you have to. Sometimes it's only one person that has a vision. I mean, it's like freaking. How about this analogy to blow your mind? It's like politics.
Oh.
Sometimes there's only one person that really sees it, and then you got to kind of build a coalition. And it's like, oh, okay, well, these two people see it, and all right, well, okay, we don't get it, but we trust them, so we'll yield the floor to them to make their case. And then you can make the case, and then slowly convince more and more people, or at least the people that matter, and get on board. And eventually, you've sold an idea for a vision, and everybody, can see it and has contributed their take on it and shaped it, and it becomes something really great and special.
And then you end up with popular characters that spend the entire episode as like a pickle or something. I don't know, like that sort of thing. Just
yeah.
Or
kimchi.
Paul Fleischman.
Just throwing that out there, guys. I think it's a great idea. So when you and this question was actually brought up to us by someone you may know, Adam Ridley. But he thought that we should
my womb rival
ask you a little bit about your special writing rituals, or some things that you may do when you're writing that are unique to your process.
I don't know what he was referring to. I have a feeling I saw that on Twitter. I have a feeling he was suggesting something that I may not be aware. Who knows? Maybe I'm being paranoid about my own brother's intent. I mean, look, my writing rituals. I just pulled an all-nighter writing a script on a different television show, not the one that may or may not be associated with this podcast. That's weird. May or may not be. It's called the Rick and Morty podcast, right?
Interdimensional RSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
Okay, all right, unofficial. I was working on another show, and I had to turn a draft around, and whenever I'm writing if I'm writing a draft of something, there gets to be a point when it's the misery of this is horrible and mediocre, and you're just shitting it out, and you feel horrible about yourself, and you're defining who you are by that day's writing. Like, oh, this is mediocre garbage, so therefore I am mediocre garbage. And then as the week goes on, or however much time you have, you start to refine it. And then for me, and I'm not saying I learned this from Dan, although this is definitely, Dan is famously has worked this way, right up to like kind of the last night before something is due. In the case of the script, it's just the obsessive going over it and going over it and going over it, and sometimes not sleeping just to make sure you've got it as close as you can possibly get it. And sometimes you really, for me with writing, and not to get a little woo woo, as they say about it. But there's a zone that you hit that you kind of can't really manufacture just arbitrarily by sitting down and going like, come on, get in the zone. And sometimes it takes like a week of working on something, and sometimes it takes working on something for hours and hours and hours in one go to like hit this point where you're kind of really not overthinking anything, and you're just kind of getting it all as refined as possible. Never perfect, but definitely closer than it would have been when you first started writing it. So that's how I work. I don't mind it. I don't have a problem with it, as long as I don't become like some insane person who pulls all-nighters every single night or something. But
right.
Like the last day of you want to make sure before something goes into your employer's hands or anyone else's that you got it as close as possible.
When you're typing up the words and you have an assignment and you're like, okay, you sit down, you start spouting it off into the keyboard or typewriter or whatever you use. I don't know. I think it's interesting that you have that insecurity. I think a lot of people do, the insecurity of like, this is gonna be shit. This is gonna be shit until you start then going back over it or finding it and saying, okay, this doesn't work as well as I thought when I was just stream of consciousing it onto the page. So I find that's interesting. Do you have to use like particular music when you write, or do you have to be like, hey, shut up down the road, stop playing that hip hop eponymous music?
Stop blasting Wonderwall. Come on.
Is that something that you do, or if you don't want to answer
playing music, you said?
Yeah, or yelling at the kids down the street.
Oh. Well, I always read about playing music, people who write with music, and I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. And I'm just like, what is this? What am I doing? It doesn't help. It does nothing for me. I feel like I don't drink when I write. I don't get high when I write. I don't, I maybe coffee and silence and it is tricky. Yeah. Because if you're like writing out in public, I mean, my brain wants distraction. So it's like, everybody in LA, the cliches, writing in coffee shops, working on screenplays.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to want to start eavesdropping on the people next to me. Like that's just, I'm gonna be more engaged in whatever they're talking about than I am what I'm trying to make up. So the ideal scenario is the most productive is probably just being in a quiet room, sober and sleepless.
That's when the best stuff comes out.
And also full of anger and just wanting to prove the bullies and the girls in middle school that wouldn't give you the time of day that you're worth something. That helps too.
Then I will be fantastic.
That childhood trauma.
We will be fantastic writers.
Yeah.
We wanted to ask. So you've written for Community. You've done the live action stuff, and clearly you've been doing stuff on the very popular animated show that we will not say the name of. Do you find there are any significant differences between writing for live action versus animation?
Oh, huge differences. For example, I'm working on a live action show right now, and you're on the set and shooting, and all of a sudden the actor will say, can we get a different line or alt a joke or tag this or something? And you're like, hold on. Okay, how about we do this? And then you're watching them in real time do that. Whereas in animation, you write those things, and then a few weeks later, however it works, you're maybe hearing the radio play, and then obviously the next step is the animatic or the thumbs, and it's just such a glacial process, but that also allows you to do things like completely change everything if you want to. Not obviously, parent company of the animated show that I may or may not work on, who may be concerned about budget overages. But you're able to do that, I think, easier than you are with live action, where in live action, from what I understand, I haven't been as involved in the process when it comes to post, but a lot of times shows will add ADR lines like over the back of a character's head to sort of make a joke land or make sense. But maybe they can do a pickup. Maybe we can carve some time into to the third episode, or to shoot that thing from the first episode that doesn't make any sense now. Whereas in animation, you can go like, oh, yikes, this scene isn't working. Let's redo this entire scene, you know?
All right, yeah.
There's lots of other differences, guys.
Yeah,
I believe it. I believe.
So have you established a preference, though?
I do. I always say I prefer live action because I get it. I get how to do it more. Like I don't really get with anime. I didn't make anime. I made live action stuff when I was just doing stuff on my own at Channel 101 or wherever I was doing stuff. Justin was obviously always doing animated stuff, so he sort of understood how animation worked. I'm still learning how it works. I don't really have my head wrapped around it. Whereas with live action, I'm like, yeah, I get the principles of live action. You know, like I feel more comfortable in how things should look. And with animation, it's like Justin will point out something. Justin being the name of someone that Justin Smith,
random person that may or may not work with,
who made an animated show on Nickelodeon that I worked on, will point out that this isn't working because of X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I looks fine to me. I don't understand why. Why is like I just can't. I don't understand sometimes visually what is right or wrong about animation, or like sometimes I'll just say like I don't know this doesn't make sense to me, but then other people will say, well, that's just how you have to animate something because we can't show this and that because it's too expensive, you know. And I'm like, really? Like you can't show someone running this direction? You know, like you can't show someone running from the background to the foreground or something weird like that, whereas like a live action, it's the easiest thing in the world.
Right. Yeah. It's just too hard to draw, and not that it's too hard, but it's the time it takes or budgeting schedules, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. It was mentioned for the Vindicators episode that was, there's a tweet that said, you know, thanks for the animators. So we tried to make your job as difficult as possible with some of the characters, right? And maybe is that a misunderstanding from the perspective of the writers, like being unable to say this. Can you do this? Can you do this in animation?
Well, that was during the Great War between the writers and the animators, where we were fucking with them big time. By writing the hardest shit to animate. No, I don't. I think that you know, the boss is the creator of the show, who also does the voices. That guy, he. You know, I'm done with this ruse. It's Justin Roiland. The show is called Rick and Morty.
Whoa!
All right, that's right.
Okay, everybody.
The lawyers never listen this far into the podcast anyway. I think we're good at this.
Oh, that's a good name for something. Lawyers never listen. I don't know what it means, but it sounds like it means something. He was always good at understanding that. He's always good at understanding that kind of thing. Like, that's too hard to animate. Yeah, I don't really know. I didn't realize it was that. I mean, that episode was complicated. In general, we actually redid a lot of that episode. I wonder if there's going to be on the DVD of the third season, if there's going to actually be an animatic that we had done that's almost a 70% different version of that episode with a whole different storyline and different characters even. That was the episode that we probably put through the ringer the most, just production-wise. So maybe that's what she's referring to.
So I have a question about that, actually. So after we watched it, the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had just come out just a couple months before. Was that part of the reason that episode was changed a little bit, or just nothing? I don't know if you can give us any insight into that. You said a lot of it was changed direction wise.
No, it definitely was. I mean, you know, for me, I was personally nervous early on in that episode when we were talking about it. I was like, well, I mean, guys, the superhero well has been onto many, many times in comedy and in general now in our culture. So if we're going to like do superheroes, let's try to do them in an interesting way that is, you know, not just, my biggest fear was that it was going to end up being, you know, like Raccoon Man, or, well, I guess that's what South Park did. But you know what I mean? Like just the one-to-one versions of superheroes. You know, I thought, and some of the other writers we talked about, we were like, well, let's try to actually make these characters feel like, you know, you didn't even want them to feel like superheroes. You wanted them to feel like just another feature of this crazy world, that like there's just this intergalactic, not even a superhero team, just I guess like the Guardians of the Galaxies, although really we never even thought about that. Just a group of people that are working together and sort of almost in a way doing what Rick does, but just ostensibly they're like going on adventures and fighting things and whatever, but they're just, the whole conflict of that episode is their philosophical attitude, or at least what Rick perceived as his honesty about the way the world works versus theirs. And so it was never. I don't like to think of it as a superhero spoof. I think that that episode is more about the relationship between Rick and Morty and Rick's sort of jealousy at like any one of us feels when someone that when we have, I guess, maybe a codependent relationship, and suddenly the other person, whether it's a romantic person or your best friend when you're a kid or whoever, it starts to like, oh well, I actually think that they're kind of cool too, and you're like, what? They're cooler than me? Fuck you, fuck them. And that's a very familiar
I'll show you how
story.
not cool they are.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes it's not like let's take the piss out of superheroes, because God knows that's been done by a million times by people who really know who do that well, and that's their kind of craft. And so to answer the question, it wasn't there's nothing. It was just about how the story came out. That we weren't satisfied with, and really nothing to do with Guardians of the Galaxy. In fact, if anything, I remember we were reading issues of God, I'm completely like The Authority, which is where a lot of the sort of concepts like in The Authority, they're in a ship as opposed to like an Earth terrestrial based Justice League fortress. And so we kind of were inspired by that kind of stuff to kind of give. So in other words, our point of departure wasn't the Justice League or the Avengers. Ideally, that's what we were trying not to do that. I am done apologizing for that episode. Next question.
We're done. So I want. Have you guys gone, guys and girls? Because we're inclusive. Damn it. Have you gone into each season with a specific theme in mind? That's guided the specific story beats, or has it just been kind of like, just give us some episodes and then we'll tie them in together?
I heard. Do you go into a season with a theme, and then it was like, and then I think I heard like, or do you just kind of figure it out? Maybe. I think that's what I heard.
That's exactly right. All the sounds included.
That was verbatim. That's exactly how he said it. Actually.
Then what was all the? Was that just?
That's well, it's Hawaii, right? And so we just have sometimes the Pacific Ocean. Just I have to speak to it to make sure the internet gets over there.
Oh, I thought you were going to say is the same word for goodbye. It is hello.
No. That'd be.
We've moved on from Vindicators. We've moved on.
So themes. I mean, I think it's a little of both. I think that. We don't ever sit there and go like, okay, guys, here's the theme for this season, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna map out an arc, and we're gonna hit these concepts throughout the episode, until we get to the building up to this big finale. It's much more flying by the seat of our pants, but it becomes clear. In fact, to be frank, like I don't know, I was reading somebody that was kind of criticizing season 3, and all of a sudden I had this epiphany. I was like, wait a minute. All the stuff that they're saying, it's criticism about how Rick is, seems to be not as powerful because he's kind of caught up in all the emotional turmoil that's happening in the family, which is, the two big events of the pilot are Rick takes down the galactic government and also more or less the Council of Ricks. Sort of neutralizes those as threats, and then also basically destroys the nuclear family that he's a part of. And now a lot of the episodes have dealt with the fact that the biggest antagonist in the season is Rick himself. I mean, he's the antagonist of the 4th episode. It's him blacked out drunk. He's his own worst enemy by turning himself into a pickle. It's really about the family, all the dysfunction that he's created because he thinks it's serving him is sort of now what's coming back to bite him. And I think as the season continues, you're going to see that there's going to be something that I think is going to go, oh my God, this actually all makes sense as far as how what Rick did which seemed to be the example of how powerful he is, both by destroying these external forces in the universe and also the internal forces of his own family emotional dynamic. That's left a big vacuum that's going to be taken advantage of. And I don't want to say any more, but it seems to all. I was sort of getting bummed out by the guy's criticism, and then I was like, when the season finishes, I'm gonna come back at this guy and say, I hope it all makes sense now.
Did you find that there were any like particularly unique challenges to trying to extend a story arc across the entire season? I feel like seasons 1 and 2, there were ongoing stories, but in season 3, it definitely feels like you're telling a bigger story throughout the season. Did anything difficult kind of arise out of that challenge?
It's just the season was incredibly difficult in general, but I don't know if that had anything to do with the nature of the stories. Although maybe it's a relationship that you can't really separate. Just the nature of those episodes with how deep we went, I guess, with a lot of the characters. See, I never think everybody criticizes. A lot of people criticize the episodes for like, whoa, they're really getting deep, and they're why are they in therapy, and why is there a therapist saying all this stuff? And I'm just like, it was always in the DNA of the show. I mean, the first season ends with Bird Person revealing to Morty that wubba lubba dub dub means I'm in great pain. Please help me, or something like that. I can't remember, but the point is that's always been there. The whole point of that episode is it's a fun party where worlds are colliding, and then we find out that Rick is way more fucked up than we knew, and so we're just building off of that. And season 3, I guess, is the one that is taking it to the furthest extremes, episode by episode. But it's not like we're betraying the show. If anything, we're peeling back layers that have always been there, and so. That's that. I don't know. That it's not, for me. It's not easy to write anything emotional. I'm not. That's Dan's big contribution as far as really writing this stuff about how Rick thinks and operates, and all that family stuff is. I'm like, hey man, I can write fun stuff, and I know that it would be cool to see an episode like this, and I think that would be really great. And then it's everybody, all the writing team, contributing what makes the show as a whole hopefully great.
We find again, you talk about the wubba lubba dub dub, and Rick being fucked up as part of the DNA of the show. In autoerotic assimilation, we haven't really gone directly into Rick's past necessarily, other than Bird Person and Squanchy, right? But Unity, and a love interest in Unity. Was there any hesitance or concern with giving Rick a love interest? And giving him, fleshing out that history more directly?
No. I mean, it was like we were going to do that episode in the first season, and it would just for some reason get kicked down to the second. But I don't know. I think that was just the most the great layer to reveal of Rick, because it's not. We all know that. And we played with this in the first episode of season 3. Like, you don't want to like just say like the reason Rick is fucked up is because his wife and family were killed tragically, and there's that jump the shark reveal, and then there's just the stuff that just fills out the character. Like, yeah, Rick is a 7-year-old super genius who travels throughout the multiverse, and in the pilot made it clear to Morty when he went into that portal that he spent a lot of time fucking a lot of women. I mean, that was in the pilot. And so we know he's had lots of romantic liaisons, and he's a very sexual being. Yeah, the idea of actually going let's examine, one of the, he probably has had lots of cheap thrills with lots of alien interdimensional beings. She's probably had sex with himself as a woman, I'm sure, at one point, if anyone has.
Episode.
But like, let's see what happens when it's like, it's something that was like, oh, this relationship clearly dug itself a little bit more into Rick than some of the other ones, and we all have had, a string of relationships in our life, and they all affect us in different ways. So Rick has whatever his relationship was with Beth's mother was one, and then this fling he had, or whatever the nature of how long that relationship was with Unity, before we actually meet her. And the core of that idea which is very similar to the Vindicators, is, this was a woman that he he met when she wasn't very successful. It's like if you're an established professional TV writer and you're dating like someone who's like just taking their first level 1 improv class. I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm not saying I exploit my power and status with younger women trying to make it in the comedy world. But that's what certainly people do, and that's what I think Rick was probably doing in his relationship when she was not as powerful as she was when we meet her in that episode. And then all of a sudden he meets her and he's like, whoa, she got her shit together and she's successful and powerful. And that probably made Rick feel bad about himself. And I think unconsciously he wanted to take her down a peg a little bit. And in the same way he wanted to take the Vindicators down a peg because Morty, thought that they were so great. It's like, who does she think she is? I don't know if Dan might have a different response. Justin might have a different response. That's how I always saw it, and I think that's when I think the show is at its best, is that when we're like, oh, this story could be told on any other TV show that takes place on Earth about Jason Biggs. I can't think of a show. Luis Ansari running into his ex-girlfriend, who's now very successful and also an actor in commercials and whatever on Master of None. And not that his character is as dysfunctional as Rick, but if he was, you could do that episode in a grounded, earthly, present-day setting. And done.
And done.
And scene.
That was my answer.
That's a very, very good answer. And I was looking at Travis for a transitionary question. And then he didn't have it, and then I was like, "Oh shit, now it's on me."
So we'll awkwardly move on to the next thing. So I guess aside from the obviously improvised dialogue in the show, is it common for dialogue to like evolve through recording sessions, or do you guys like stick really close to the script when you have actors doing their reads, or is there a lot of ad lib, and does the show kind of adjust as people are doing the acting?
I mean, it's mostly we're sticking to the script, because I think that's just you kind of gotta stick to the script, just because you have the infrastructure of the show is like, okay, we're going to record from this time to this time. Here are the lines we have to get from this character. Here are the lines we have to get from this actor, and and you're scheduling everything, and so you kind of can't really afford to just go like, fuck it, let's just wing it. For too much of it. I mean, those interdimensional cable recording sessions were chaotic and, very complicated, and sometimes didn't really yield worthwhile results. I mean, it was a lot of work to get anything that was like, okay, I guess this could be put on TV. But that being said, asterisks, Justin is such a funny improviser. As far as, obviously, I don't know if it's clear to anybody else, probably not, but he is not professionally trained. And, but he's just so naturally funny. Quick plug, Justin and I did a podcast together, Grandma's Virginity podcast. And it was basically just, him doing that. And, it was just so funny and delightful just to like watch him just kind of make up nonsense as like especially as a funny character. But in a animated television show recording session, it's more like, okay, let's get it as scripted. Oh, well, now that I'm reading this scene, what if we kind of change this line to this? Okay, cool. I can do that too. Or he'll certainly fuck with a line in order to make it feel more comfortable to him. And you get a lot of funny stuff and a lot better reads from Rick or Morty by just him adding stuff that we would have never thought to script,
I'm glad you brought up the interdimensional cable. This was actually Travis's question, and he paused, so I'm going to steal it from him. Thanks, Travis. So you mentioned interdimensional cable. You wrote interdimensional cable 2, Tempting Fate, and so I just wanted to ask. The subtitle is Tempting Fate, but with the success of Rick Minutes, I don't know if anybody foresaw how successful Rick Minutes was going to be. Did you guys feel a lot of pressure to replicate the laughter or the experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the kind of question that could lead me to giving a very undiplomatic answer. So I'll try to, I'm in that weird phase where I'm like, what do I have to lose at this point? I didn't really want to do a second. Well, actually, that's not true. I did want to do a second interdimensional cable episode, but I knew how special the first one was, and that it was a perfect marriage of that brilliant nonsense improvising and a really well structured and emotionally rich story, and the way they wove together so seamlessly, and then also just it made sense because the stories actually came together with the television as being a plot point. Them watching television and seeing Jerry, on the news in the other parallel world. And I'm like, how can you repeat that? And there was some ideas that I was really excited about doing, and we didn't do, as far as what the B story or the A story, depending on what you call what you would have called the hospital story or the abortion story in the first one. And I'm like, Jerry getting his penis removed is like kind of funny, but it's not really. I mean, come on, I'm not blowing him his mind. I'm saying it's not near the level of the first episode's A story. And so I knew there was going to be kind of a weird alchemical, imbalance or something. And Tempting Fate was very self-consciously. I think I might have written that. To be clear, obviously everybody knows. Not everybody knows, because that's what I've been dealing with a lot on Twitter. TV writing is, there is some ownership that any credited writer can take over an episode, but it's never means that writer went off and is solely responsible for every word in that script, and especially when you're working with Dan, who's so brilliant and does passes and everything. Note that I'm that's all a preamble for me distancing myself from what's many consider to be one of the worst episodes of Rick and Morty. Let me explain how TV writing works. The credited writer is not always responsible for everything in the script. The Unity episode? Oh yeah, 100% me. No, so Dan Guterman and I were writing that episode, and we were like, I don't know. It's just like, we're doing it again, and it's great. And I know Justin loves doing this, and it's really funny, but I just think like it's really hard to replicate what we did the first time. And so that's why we called it Tempting Fate, because that's what we were fucking doing.
Yeah. I'll just throw this out there. We did a poll a long time ago when we first started the podcast of who liked the first one versus the second one better, and they came out pretty close. Like I'm a fan of the first one. Travis actually likes the second one better, right? Unless he's lying.
I'm sorry, Travis.
I made that decision long before you agreed to come on the podcast.
It's true. I think yours is subpar to the first one. But
yeah, those episodes really, they resonate with a lot of people. I think the first 60 Minutes was like sort of how Brandon was introduced to the show, was those individual clips, and I think there's so many like bits crammed into a lot of that it's easy for people to point to those episodes and be like, this is really something special. So I know you get a lot of questions on Twitter about a new thing coming, or another interdimensional cable. I know they did one in the comics, but I'm sure you guys will have something good in store for us, and I won't hold you to sharing any of that information with any particular shows that you work on. Well,
I know that I can just probably safely say what I think I've heard everybody else say, which is just, there's another thing coming that I wouldn't want anyone to assume was going to scratch the same itch as interdimensional cable, because that's so unique in the way the ad-libbing and stuff goes. But it's definitely like, this is another fun way to do a variety-ish kind of episode.
The few episodes I listened to Grandma's Virginity podcast, and just hearing Justin do his voices and want to do the ad-libbing stuff, I feel like Rick and Morty, there needs to be an avenue for him to still get that ad-lib fix in there. So regardless of whether or not you do an interdimensional cable or some new kind of version, I don't know him. Clearly you do. But I feel like...
Do I?
I don't know.
Do I?
Do we ever really know someone?
But anyway, so I want to ask you about a different episode. So we talked to Brian Newton. He directed the Me Seeks and Destroy episode. And we wanted to get your thoughts on... I asked him if he knew that the Me Seeks and Destroy would be considered such an entry-level episode to Rick and Morty. At what point in time did you realize, this is going to be the episode that everyone's like, Mr. Meeseeks, that's the one you need to watch to get into this show?
Well, no, because I've been working with I'm. It's pretty clear that anything Justin does the voice of is gonna be hilarious and probably a popular character, which is why Mr. Meeseeks, Mr. Poopy Butthole, and even our little friend Noob from season 3 have all really kind of popped, and not to mention Rick and Morty. And so I just took for granted that Justin to me is, when he does his voices, it's so fun. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm his biggest fan, but I mean, I'm only saying that because that sounds pretentious and weird. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of, like, you know, I'm a genuinely huge fan of just his sensibility and his comedy and the voices he does and the way he can just riff funny, hilarious shit, and the stuff we do in Grandma's Virginity being an example of that. You know, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't really realize that combination of those voices combined with that sci-fi concept, which is, you know, it's a takeoff on maybe, let's say, a genie trope or whatever, but it's not a one-to-one of anything we've seen, really. Although Rob Schraub would say, Scud the Disposable Assassin much? Sorry, Rob. But all that being said, I mean, that's what the show is. It's Justin's hilarious voices combined with cool sci-fi concepts and funny jokes, and so that was just another example of that, and it was like the 5th episode I think we wrote, so we're still so early on in the show, we're not even sure what the show is yet. And so yeah, it wasn't like, oh my god, this is the big one. There have been episodes where, like, oh, when this comes out, this is gonna be big, we think, but that one, it was like, at that point we didn't know what the hell was gonna be popular.
And it's crazy because I think, you know, in general, we talk to a lot of listeners of this podcast, and most people point to Me Seeks and Destroy as like their favorite episode when they're asked. And I think maybe it is that the fact that they're so kind of zany, and they with Justin doing the voices and everything, they're just really attractive character to so many fans.
Yeah, and I apologize that we haven't brought them back. But I like to
they live on in our hearts.
Yeah, and in the merchandise.
Absolutely.
But I like to say, just trust that we're going to introduce new characters that you're going to want to make into plushies.
And they pop up in the background sometimes. You can see them in blips and chits and things like that. They're around. They're there.
Yeah. I think that was something that I think the artist had added. I'm not sure where that came from. That wasn't in the script or anything, but it was a great little addition. And I think that actually also gives a little. It actually adds more than you think to the mythology of the Meeseeks, because I think it makes it pretty clear that Rick did not create the Meeseeks box, because what did he create that to help him play a video game in the background? I don't think so.
Is he selling that as like a side hustle that he's?
I like to think that Rick was Rick's an incredible inventor. He also is well traveled and has gone into stores across the multiverse and been like, what is this? Oh, $10? All right, sure.
Yeah, I'll take it. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting that Meeseeks are only used for the most mundane tasks. As powerful as they can be, people use them to get a high score on a video game in the background of blips and chits.
Yeah, I wonder if that just is due to the lack of imagination of the user. Or perhaps just what with someone who's like, well, yeah, what am I gonna say, take over the universe for me? Who am I to play God?
They might have to exist too long to get that accomplished. Okay, so in Close Encounters of the Rick Kind, you introduce a whole lot of different versions of Rick and Morty. Was that episode an extension out of the thought process of the B plot on Rick's D Minutes, or how was that idea first pitched as to have that central conflict between all the Ricks? And
I think that was something that Justin had wanted to do for a long time, just because it's such a, it's the thing that the show is, that's its whole, from the first episode or the second episode, I can't remember because we kind of wrote them at the same time, but the Love Potion number 9, where they go to the other reality, that was the first episode I think we wrote. It might have been this, because we wrote that and Lawnmower Dog kind of before the show had even been picked up. And so that episode is establishing the parallel worlds, with parallel versions of themselves. And so that was always something that I know Justin would wanted to do because it's such a natural extension of that concept. So yeah, it was only later that people were like talking about this. I can't remember what the something of Rick's or the something of Reed Richards or in the Fantastic Four comics that they had done that. Like a bunch of Reed Richardses from all over the multiverse get together and do science together. And so that was something none of us knew about, but it just seemed to be an obvious thing that Rick would do. Or Ricks would do.
The Ricks.
Bureaucrats. So we have a few questions from Unity. That's what we call the listeners. Because we don't want to single any one person out, and so it's just a massless, faceless
God
blob.
forbid.
Faceless blob. But this Unity,
what it boils down to is we read on like some top 5 tips for podcasters that you should address your audience as an individual, and we're like, well, what is the one individual that is everyone? It's Unity.
Oh,
it just it writes itself. It was easy. But yeah, we have a bunch of Unity questions. So I don't know if this is like a rapid fire round or anything like that. But the first one comes from Matt Grace. He asks, when Rick fought Toxic Rick, they both cloned themselves. Does this mean that Rick no longer has his cyborg parts that we all just found out about?
I just thought about that actually. Yeah, it's funny when people latch on to the specifics of stuff like that. I'm like, I never even think about that as being like a game-changing concept. Like the fact that Rick, I guess I just assume that like that's almost Rick getting a new outfit that right. He might get bored of in a week or something. It's just like it's as canonical as him getting a scarf. Him getting cybernetic implants. And then I also saw something on Reddit about how many times Rick's died this season alone, as far as the bodies, all the body switching that happened. So right. Yeah. So the question was, does that mean that these guys, the Rick we now have as of what'll be the next episode, no longer has the cybernetic implants?
That's the specific question.
I'm assuming no, but I'm also assuming that if he decided he wanted them again, it's just like, shit. You can hit that shit before breakfast, man.
Yeah. That actually brings up a different question about just fan theories in general. Like when people come up to you and say, "Hey, here's a show," or when you're browsing Reddit, how do you feel about it? Is it like this where you're like, "Oh shit, I didn't even think about that"?
Yeah. It's funny. It's evenly divided. There's that is the dumbest thing in the world. Why would we ever do that? Why would that ever happen? And then there's that's it. Wow, that is an interesting thing that I never thought about, and I don't know if we should think about it because you don't want to start getting up your own ass creatively. I think that it's just like the way that Rick breaks the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. And then right. People go like, Rick knows he's in a TV show. I'm like, I no, Rick, we just wanted to break the fourth wall because it was funny.
We thought it'd be funny.
Joke. I mean, it's the paradox of like these things, like this can exist, like this, Rick can break the fourth wall and there can still be stakes in the episode. This can happen and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna change the game. I mean. The thing you don't want to just say fuck you to any kind of interesting continuity that you've woven in, but you also can't get caught up in every little detail and worried about how that's going to conflict with something else. If it's going to, I mean, we forget about most of the shit. We're like, whoa, shit, we did do that. Fuck.
That was a good gag. Oh shit, someone remembered exactly. It. Oh god.
Yeah.
Has a fan theory ever like changed the direction you guys went, or for better or worse, like? You're maybe to avoid something they said, or
no. Fuck no. In fact, it's pretty interesting to see how some of the fan theories I've been reading lately are. I mean, not even close. Like there's just like shit that's gonna happen. They're like, I haven't seen anyone even speculate on this, which is pretty awesome because in this day and age, it's everybody's eventually guesses. You've heard about TV shows that have totally changed the direction of their writing because they're like, oh, they figured it out.
Lost.
Yeah, Lost, or didn't like a Dexter season? Didn't people predict that there was like a Fight Club thing happening with Colin Hanks and Edward James Olmos' character?
They did, yeah.
And so I don't think I've seen anything that's predicted anything, and There actually was. I'm not gonna say there was somebody who said something based on an episode title, and they're like, "Yeah, I bet this, and this is gonna happen." I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay, fine. That is technically what happens, but Jesus Christ, like, don't act like." I mean, yeah. So what? Like, that's the basics of what happened, but you have no idea what once you get into the details of it.
Yeah. Like we talked about episode titles before, like Rick Mancing the Stone, before the episode actually aired, and there was a long article on some website going like Rick Mancing the Stone, which is using Romancing the Stone, which had Kathleen Turner and Michael and it was like going through this whole thing. Like, yeah, I haven't seen the episode, so maybe they're right, but I don't know how much we can glean from the episode title, right?
Yeah, no, and in that episode, our episode, I think a lot of our episode titles are horrible. Which is so funny because I remember the Whirly Durly Conspiracy, which is the episode my episode from this season. I'm like, I'm calling it this. I don't give a shit. We're not doing another fucking Rick and Morty pun. It's so stupid. I mean, sometimes they work amazing. I mean, Rick Minutes is great, and I'm trying to think of another one that really works well.
Something Ricked this way comes.
Oh yeah, that one's perfect. But but like it didn't mean we had to start doing every single one. And so then it's like well, then there's just random episodes called Me Seeks and Destroy, which what is that? And then so I'm like, I'm calling this episode the Whirly Durly Conspiracy because it sounds cool, and it sounds like if there's a Rick and Morty like novel, like extended universe like novel you'd see like at a grocery store, that's what it would be called, you know? Like some 70-page novel written by me when I'm like broke and don't work in the show anymore, but like they're throwing me bones by writing the novelizations. And so they were like, no, we're changing that. Why would we? And I'm like, and I think just pure like, oh, at some point it just slipped through the cracks and made it to be the final title. But Rick Mancing the Stone, by the way, one of the things we tried to do is, a lot of people like when they criticize the episode, like, it's a Mad Max spoof, which is fair enough, but like. We tried to flesh out the world a little bit more, and there's actually more inspiration taken from the movie Doomsday by Neil Marshall, which, if you've seen that, has the classic post-apocalyptic elements to it, but then also has some of the medieval stuff that we show when the Armathy character is going to kill the brilliantly voiced slaver who was in the bathtub. Who, yes. That character just pops right off the screen.
And that was, I think, a big confusion for me is because you did go into some other areas that really didn't match with the Mad Max sort of genre, and so for you to specify that Doomsday film, it makes more sense in that context.
Yeah, not that I'm like. It doesn't help my case as far as I'm going. Yeah, we don't like spoof movies. I mean, like, for example, like we weren't spoofing Mad Max, we were spoofing Doomsday. Like, I mean, I'm just. But what the point is that by throwing in mutants and sort of a weird retro medieval setting, and combining that with Mad Max, it was like, once again, like I was saying with the Vindicators episode, it's like really trying to push it so it feels like it's its own world as opposed to just, as Dan would say, Yankovicking something from pop culture, which I don't love it. It seems like there's a segment of the audience that doesn't love it. It's easy to do sometimes because you're like, well, we know what we're doing because we're kind of jumping off. This is a jumping off point. But I think when we're really nailing it, it's when it feels like its own universe, its own mythology. Did I answer Unity's question?
Yes. To a T, absolutely. Another question. This one's from Drew. I don't know their last name.
Yeah, Drew, you better not. They're a nameless, faceless blob, I thought.
That's right. Why does Rick
formerly
always,
known as Drew? I just want to formerly known.
Pre-assimilation. Why does Rick always use the old junkie spaceship?
Why? Well, okay. I'm going to tell you why. And I swear to God, this is something I've thought long and hard about. And I'm not just saying words that I hope are going to feel like a thoughtful answer. I think it's because Rick can't really be bothered in the same way that Zach Galifianakis supposedly, like, even as a post-Hangover movie star, still drove the shitty, beat-up car he drove as a broke comedian. I think I'd like to say it's partly because it's Rick's fuck you to like, yeah, I could make a fucking badass spaceship, but why would I need to when this does the job? And B, maybe it's good that people underestimate the capabilities of this ship. Does this ship, with its masking taped on headlights or whatever, look like it has an AI security system that can replicate and deteriorate a police officer's dead child? No. So you kind of want to have, it's like Columbo. Everybody underestimated Columbo because he looked like the schlub.
God.
And he'd be like, one more thing. And he'd fucking nail it. Nail the fucking the killer to the wall.
You're speaking my language now, Ridley. You're speaking that Columbo language.
Yeah. Never seen an episode, but I'm aware of it culturally.
Yeah.
Before my time, but
fake eye. That's all you need to know. He's a private fake eye.
Yeah.
So we talked about Grandma's Virginity podcast, all right? And this is from a ton of Unity former real people. Are there going to be ever any new GVP episodes?
We'll never say never, but it's been very difficult to get one made. I mean, in a world where it's hard to get the frickin' show made.
All right, so you heard it here. Never say never.
You heard it here
but
first.
No promises.
There may be in the future.
I stop short of ever declaring, and believe me, I get inundated with tweets and comments and whatever all the time about GVP, more so than TBD and TBD. Mm-hmm. About when's the next episode? And I'm like, I stop short of saying publicly like it's over. There's never gonna be another episode, because who knows? Like I sort of fantasize that, like, now seems to be people are finding it because of the show, and fans of Justin and stuff, that maybe one of these days some podcast festival will reach out to us and go, hey, how about you guys do a little reunion, huh? Little reunion. Come on down to Austin and do a reunion of Grandma's Virginity, and maybe we'll do something there.
All right. What about Harmontown? Any plans to revisit Harmontown?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't feel comfortable in Harmontown. I'm not. I don't fit in there.
So this is actually a Brandon question. You don't fit in on Harmontown. So I actually went to see Rick and Morty, the one that you were on with Parnell and Jack Black. And, that's the same stage as Harmontown. Do you feel comfortable being up in front of all those people? And all those people expecting so damn much from you?
You tell me. You were there. Did I seem comfortable?
You looked comfortable. I mean, you were sitting on that couch and drinking out of that Morty head.
I thought I had some good zingers.
Yeah,
I thought I held my own with those comedy greats.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was like, wow, this Ridley guy.
Thank you.
And you know what? I had to pee the entire time, and I waited for you to stop talking, and then I went to the bathroom. I just want to throw that out there, but
wow.
Yeah.
Did I ever stop talking?
You did for a while, and then they showed Channel 101 stuff, and I was like, It's actually the best time for me to go, because it's pitch black, and if I'm on camera and people see me leaving.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. If there's anyone out there who has a live podcast, or that's not Harmontown, or anything else that would get me on stage, I love doing that kind of stuff, because it's, look, stand up is a whole other beast that you have to like prepare for and work hard at, and I do that when I'm writing a script. So I still like the juice of being on stage and getting a laugh.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how to. So if anyone ever, like, whenever I've done anything like that, I like to do that kind of stuff, and I do feel like I'm pretty comfortable. Maybe I'm not.
Like I said,
maybe I suck.
I didn't see your hands weren't shaking like you were PTSD or anything. So yeah, I feel like you did a good job. So,
I was a little nervous at first, but yeah, then I think I found my groove.
I just want to throw this out there. If you ever decide to do a live GVP episode, why did I emphasize that syllable? I'm not sure. We know how to mix audio. So just throwing it out there, just let us know, and we'll edit the shit out of, just even if it's just you guys on an iPhone and you send me the audio, I'll record it, whatever. It's free. It's a free service, damn it.
I appreciate that. It's funny. Some people offered that, and the truth is that's where I'm sort of a control freak, because I would edit a lot. I mean, Justin and I would sort of collaborate, but then it got to the point where it was clear, more and more that I was going to do the heavy lifting with the editing and stuff. And so I got really very anal about the editing, and especially because, like, man, that really taught me a lot about reality television, because I would sometimes edit stuff where I'm like, oh, I just kind of faked this moment. Like, this was not, like, I wanted to cut like a minute out of an interview and create a seamless editing point, or even sort of kind of change the context of something, and not for any weird exploitive reason, just because, like, this is kind of boring and dull, like, but I want to get to this next bit, and this is a great way to kind of make it all sync up. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think that some outlier, some stranger could understand the nuance of the editing of the Grandma's Virginity podcast like I do. Making Justin's fart jokes land.
The great part about this is you're talking about faking a moment and then editing stuff out. Oh boy, I can't wait to edit out my asking that question.
Are you going to make me look racist?
No,
by editing this in a creative way.
Say something really racist. I promise not to edit it.
I always found that oranges are the inferior fruit, and then you're going to now take like white people.
White people.
Or wait, I said oranges are the inferior fruit. I meant oranges are the superior fruit, and now you're going to take white people, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
don't do that.
I do, because you don't want to say any other color or creed. Now I'll edit that, and then I'll say with your stuff. Cool, great. This will be on Reddit trending tomorrow. Head writer Rick and Morty racist. Oh, I have one last thing for you, Mr. Ridley. Respect and deference.
Yes.
You've been to all these different Comic-Cons, mainly just San Diego Comic-Con and probably a few others. But so I did a Rick and Morty fan panel just this last week over at the Amazing Hawaii Comic-Con. And I hope you know this. I hope you and Justin and Dan know this, and all the writers and everybody else who works on the show, just how in love the fans are with the show. Over the last few years, specifically for the show, how has that experience changed for you going to a Comic-Con and seeing this swell of support for the show?
Yeah, it's crazy, because I remember very vividly the first San Diego Comic-Con panel we did before the show had aired, and it was so awkward. It was it was a small room, half filled with people who were maybe curious about Dan Harmon's new show. Nobody knew Justin. Maybe they knew him from being the voice of Lemon Grab on Adventure Time. But, it was like they were up there just basically selling the show to people. And Justin started flop sweating, and he's like, I swear it's going to be great. It's like a crazy sci-fi comedy. It was really fun. And Kari Walgren, who's the voice of Rick Ship and a bunch of other Jessica and a bunch of characters in the show, was like, you're not really, I mean, come on, it's a crazy show. Just too confident. Tell everybody how fucking crazy and awesome this show is. And then the next year, when at least the first season had aired, it was, wow, okay, this is awesome. And then by the time it got to this year, just walking around Comic-Con and marking how often I was seeing either a Rick and Morty shirt or cosplay that interval was so much shorter than the previous year. And so I'm like, wow, it's incredible to be walking in every 30 seconds seeing a Rick and Morty thing, someone dressed up or someone wearing a shirt.
Yeah,
it is pretty incredible. I mean, it kind of, I've said this a million times, and I'm always worried about repeating myself. And frankly, this weekend I was told by my close friends that I often do repeat myself. When doing that show with Justin and Dan, and having it be, after years of working with those guys on stuff we weren't getting paid, or whatever, just the different variations, and sort of always having the fantasy of, I think that the dream job would be having a show that I'm doing with my friends, and then having people actually like it, and then all of a sudden now cut to Halloween parties and toy stores and seeing these characters merchandise or people dressing up with them. It's a very cool feeling. It really is a dream to experience that. And also, the truth is, the fact that people actually connect to the stuff that is just a bunch of people who are like, I don't know, this is what we are into. This is what we like. We are making the show for us at the end of the day. That's why we're not doing tons of fan service unless it feels organic. We're just like, this is what we would want to see and do. And then people connecting to that's like the most gratifying thing I think anyone creative can experience, right?
Absolutely. And I know we appreciate it. We've definitely used this platform as a way to express our appreciation of what you and Dan and Justin and everybody over there on the team are doing. So thank you from us and from everybody that listens to this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I assume that's the wrap up.
Well, yeah. Is there anything else that maybe you're working on that you want to plug, or maybe a way for folks to, if they haven't already started following you on Twitter, for people to, I don't know, get in touch with you? grandmasvirginity.com.
I've got a manifesto that I think is going to make a pretty big splash soon. You'll find out when it's published in the Washington Post and the New York Times. And if it's not published, well, let's just say you're not going to like the results.
So are you watching the Discovery Channel series on the Unabomber? Just out of curiosity, because that felt like a direct reference, and maybe it's just wrapped up in that show. Okay,
that was no coincidence. No, I listened. There's a great. I'm going to plug another podcast. Not that just this the show. How. It's not about me. Look, I know everybody thinks, oh, here's Ryan Ridley. He's such a self-promoter. He's coming on. Of course, he's going to come on the Rick and Morty podcast because he knows, it's like Trump going on, Fox. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get the tough questions here. There's a podcast called Last Podcast on the Left that is a great podcast for just true crime and like supernatural stuff. But then, there's a really funny group of guys that do it. Henry Zabrowski and Ben Kissel and Marcus Parks, and so everything I know about like alien shit or ghosts, famous hauntings or famous murders, I know from that because like I don't know. I've never been obsessive with anything, so like I don't really go down any rabbit holes. But that show, I learned a lot about the Unabomber.
Good to know. Thank you so much for the plug for Last Podcast on the Left.
Hey, listen, there's crossover fans.
I believe it. Yeah. No, I will listen to anything that references Wes Craven.
Wait. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot about that. I forgot that's the Last House on the Left. That's right.
Well, hey, man, I want to... Travis already said thank you, but let me also say thank you.
I want to hear him say it again.
Go ahead, Travis.
Thank you from us and from everybody that listens to this podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was very enjoyable, lovely chat. I'm glad I got to do it. I became aware of the podcast, and I had listened to other Rick and Morty podcasts before, I think. there's been a few other ones, and I was like, what the fuck? This sounds like it's recorded on an iPhone. What the hell are you talking about? And then I listened to an episode you guys did, and I was like, oh, this sounds like that they're doing a good job. This is a good version of a Rick and Morty podcast, I think.
Holy shit! Thank you. That just made my Labor Day weekend complete.
It's my pleasure.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Riddles. And if you ever want to come back, please, we'll always have you.
We'll find out if I get an email when this drops, and I'm getting a cease and desist from Turner Entertainment.
Us as well, and
yeah.
We'll have that together, and that'll be a bonding moment for all.
Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen!
Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen!
Ryan freaking Ridley.
Freaking Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very happy he came on the show. Very fun conversation, and really cool. Kind of getting a little bit of insider info on some of the stuff that goes into his writing, as well as sort of some questions that maybe he gets asked a lot about Rick and Morty, but that he was willing to share some of that info. Hopefully, we didn't get him in any trouble with Adult Swim. I'm sure we'll find out sooner or later.
Yeah. I didn't want to be the one to drop the ruse for it. I wanted it to be on him.
Talking around that, like, I was like, okay. Like, anywho, but yeah, thanks again to Ryan Ridley. He'll roll with those punches. He'll definitely. So I want to say, I didn't mention it in the interview, Sire Dark. We mention you all the time on the show, but that Harmontown question was his. I would feel really bad if I didn't give him that short out. And speaking of listener suggestions and short outs, it's time for the final bit of our episode. If you held on long enough, hold on a few more minutes for some shout outs. When we're going to start off over on Twitter with Grapplestar92. Does it say anything about Summer that she gets so upset about Ethan dumping her, but she married what's his name earlier?
Yeah, I wrote heritage, but I meant I think it's hemorrhage. But the thing is, I never really considered that because we had Ethan and then we completely forgot about him. And then this episode happened. So
yeah, that was a really good question. I almost feel bad that we didn't ask Ryan Ridley about it. But yeah, Ethan's a thing of the past now, and he's all, he had a theme park going strong inside of him, but Morty took care of that with the growth shrink ray type thing. So, next up, we got
H3YL73, who sent us a picture of him and Justin Roiland, which is totally jealous, but whatever. He calls him a bundle of joy, but we just interviewed Ryan Ridley, so
yeah. How long was your photo up? So hi, Twitter name. No, very awesome that you got a chance to meet the man himself, Justin Roiland. Next up, Casey Eats Brains. She says that the first episode she watched was Rick Mancing the Stone. So I guess this episode has my stamp of approval for an introduction to the show. What do you think about that, Brandon?
I think that's pretty cool. It's fine. I think it captures a little bit of every one of the main family members in their own specific way. And yeah, so I think it's a solid enough. Especially Jerry. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the fact that we have established relationships with the characters over the first couple seasons, and I think that adds weight to it. But I think it is you could meet a lot of the characters and then maybe extrapolate over time and rewatches and things like that, how they got to that point. So anyway, moving on over to Facebook. What do we got over there, Brandon?
Well, we got a message from Colin wondering what our take was on the theory that Rick knows or is known that he's in a TV show.
Well, Colin.
Well. I think if you listen to the Ridley interview, you might actually get your answer.
Yep, it's just a gag. That was a really interesting part of that interview for me was how much people build theories off of small elements of the show and how much the writers are just like, oh, that was the thing? Oh, yeah, we did do that. Oh, shoot. Like, all right, sorry.
All right. So moving on, couple reviews. One from Zenger over on iTunes. The podcast is a great chaser, hard whiskey. Even when the show's not going, they somehow manage to make great episodes. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Zenger.
It's like taking us back.
And seeing as we have like 4 episodes of season 3 left, we really got to get our act together to try and keep pumping out some more episodes.
Yeah, we are fucked indeed. So our last review is by Die 1,000 Deaths. 1K deaths? 1 kilogram deaths.
Yes. Yes, die 1 kilo death.
Yeah, exactly right. I like the breakdown of the show and catching jokes that I might have missed.
Woo!
Yeah, which includes the show, I think. But hey, thank you everyone for listening. My voice is a little quiet because it's nighttime, and I edited the hell out of this thing at night while my family's sleeping, and they're like, Brandon, shut up. So thank you everyone, seriously, so much for doing so much for us and listening to the show.
Come on back. We'll try to get some other people on or something. All right. Until next week, I'm Travis.
And I'm Brandon.
The banjo. And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.